"No, my queen. I didn't do it! I'm innocent!" Mara's voice cracked like thunder in the night, her knees bruised from kneeling too long on the cold palace stones. Queen Shebah rose slowly from her golden throne, her beaded robe shimmering in the firelight. Her voice was low, sharp, laced with venom. "You shall die by sunrise. That is my judgment." The room fell into stunned silence. Gasps floated among the palace maids, some covering their mouths, others exchanging fearful glances. They knew Mara was innocent, but none dared to speak. In Zayah Kingdom, Queen Shebah's wrath was legend. They said she once made a warrior eat sand for disobeying her. Her power, her voice, her presence was like that of a lioness, and her rage could crush mountains into dust. Mara's tears rolled silently. Not one person, not even the guards, dared to plead. In the corner, hidden behind a thick pillar, stood Manayah. Her heart raced, her lips trembled, but she kept her silence. She knew what this was about. Queen Shebah wasn't delivering justice. She was cleansing the palace of anyone loyal to the king, or anyone close to Prince Domah. The once powerful King Mulu had grown frail. His hair, once thick and black, was now pale like gray ash. His hands trembled when he spoke. His voice, once strong enough to silence a room, now barely rose above a cricket sounds. It had been many moons since he fathered his last child. And that was where Queen Shebah's quiet rage festered. She had married King Mulu not for love, but for power. She bore him no children, and the people still whispered about his 2 sons from his late wife. They were the envy of every family in Zayah. Prince Domah, the elder, tall, brave, and calm like a mountain stream. His younger brother, Prince Tibor, playful, reckless, but loyal to the bone. The 2 boys adored each other like blood brothers born under the same moon. But unknown to most, Queen Shebah's heart had grown twisted. She had begun to see Prince Domah not as a stepson, but as a man. A powerful heir, a future king. And in her dark mind, she saw herself not as a mother, but as the queen beside him. If the king died and she could win the prince, all the power of Zayah would be hers. But then came Manayah. Manayah was no ordinary maid. Chosen by the elders of the land, she was assigned to care for the ailing king, feed him, bathe him, listen to his groans in the midnight hour when pain visited his bones. And she did it well. Her hands were gentle. Her voice was like cold water to a fevered soul. Even the king smiled more when she was near, and Prince Domah noticed. He saw how she cared, how she bowed to elders with respect, how her laughter floated like music when she played with children in the village square. Slowly, his heart leaned toward her. Queen Shebah noticed too. She saw how the prince watched Manayah from across the courtyard, how his voice softened when he spoke of her, how his smiles now had meaning, and her soul burned with fury. And now, here in the palace courtyard, Mara was just the first victim of that jealousy. The night after Mara's sentence, silence hung over the palace like a dark cloud. Mara had been accused of killing a guard, but everyone knew she was innocent. Every bad deed in the palace is an attempt to cover for every wrong. No one dared speak of what had happened. But in every glance, every whisper between maids behind closed doors, one name passed like fire on dry grass: Queen Shebah, evil deeds. And in the golden quarters of Queen Shebah, she did not sleep. She stood at her window, staring out at the moonlit garden, her heart beating fast, not with fear, but fury. Somewhere deep inside her, something dangerous had awakened. It was no longer just hatred. It was fear of losing control of the kingdom. It was no news. The king would soon join his ancestors, and power would be stripped off her head like a wrapper snatched by the wind, leaving her bare before those she once ruled. The next morning came with soft winds and children's laughter echoing from the courtyard. Manayah had finished her duties early and decided to join the palace children playing outside. Her silver and black robe clung neatly around her as she crouched beside the children, smiling and gently winning their trust. She was unaware that from above, Prince Domah stood watching her through the royal balcony. He didn't blink. His eyes followed every movement of hers. The way her hands moved, the kindness in her voice, the smile that lit her face. She wasn't like the other maids. She had a softness that felt sacred. He couldn't explain it. He only knew that whenever she was near, the palace didn't feel so cold. Just then, Queen Shebah appeared behind him. Her footsteps were silent, like a snake on smooth stone. She saw it, the way her stepson stared at Manayah with admiration, with longing. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Her eyes narrowed, her breath slowed. Inside her chest, something snapped. That night, she did not join the king in his chamber. She sent his food through another maid and returned to her room in silence. But her thoughts were wild. That girl is casting spells. I see it now. This is not ordinary. She tried to sleep. She couldn't. She imagined herself beside Prince Domah, her body adorned in royal beads, her name praised as the future queen of Zayah, even after the king is gone. And now that image was cracking. Manayah was in the way. She had to be removed, but not by sword. That would be too loud. No. Shebah would break her the way storms tear a tree from its roots, slowly, violently, without mercy. The next afternoon, King Mulu sat propped up on a mound of pillows, his face pale but his spirit awake. A small breeze blew in through the curtains. Manayah sat beside him, feeding him warm pepper soup, dabbing his lips gently. The king looked at her like a father would a favorite daughter. Domah stood by the door, watching silently, a faint smile on his lips. The scene was peaceful, whole. And again, Shebah saw him. She had come to check on the king, but what she found was more than she could bear. Her husband being fed by the girl she hated, her stepson admiring the same girl, his arms folded, a look of calm joy on his face. Something twisted in her throat. She turned and walked away. But not before Domah noticed her shadow disappear behind the door. That night, palace routines changed. Manayah's name appeared less often on the duty list. Her access to the king's chamber was restricted. A new maid, one loyal to Shebah, was suddenly assigned to assist the king. And rumors began to spread among the other servants. Have you heard? The queen says Manayah uses charm water. I heard she buried something behind the king's window. She wants to control the throne. Manayah heard every whisper, but she said nothing. Even Domah noticed the shift. He confronted the chief steward, demanding to know why Manayah was no longer allowed near his father. Manayah was assigned specially to care for the king because her late mother was a herbal healer, so they saw Manor fit for the role, as she is very familiar in administering herbs the proper way, so the prince was worried why Manayah would be replaced unturned. But Shebah was always 2 steps ahead. She had already warned the steward, if the prince asks questions, tell him it's on medical advice, and dare not mention my name. Still, Domah's suspicion began to grow. He watched how Manayah walked quietly now, keeping her head down, avoiding the queen's gaze. He wanted to speak to her, to comfort her, but something in the air made him slow down, and that was what Shebah wanted. To break them apart before their bond became unshakable. To strike before love became rebellion. To destroy before truth had time to bloom. The game had begun, and only one woman would survive it.